Nigeria, of course, as we know, largest palm oil producer in Africa, yet cannot meet her local demand. Where's our top 10 or top 15? I think Nigeria is about number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 1.5 million metric tons, 2% of global market share as far as production, but can't meet it. We spoke with Kayode Esheyin of Cardinal Stone Partners about a week or so ago, where he laid out exactly, why that is in terms of not being able to meet the supply or demand.
The major drag has been the fact that a large percentage, about 80% of producers of crude oil, CPO farmers are smallholder, small-scale producers, subsistence farming, if you will.
Yeah.
So what that means is essentially most of their methods of productions are historical and very, very crude and primitive. It's 2025, and we still have a large percentage of producers using very old, hand-milled methods of extracting.
I mean, look at these guys.
Exactly.
Look at the video. Look at what,
So what that means is there's a limit to which these guys can really produce. And even if they have intentions of expanding, there's a limit to the capital they can raise. There's a limit to even the technical know-how that they can bring to the table versus, say, the SEATs, the Prescos and Okomo, who essentially have been in the industry for a while, who are much larger than these guys and even have global expertise to rely on. And that's why the supply side of things in Nigeria continues to be a drag.
All right, so that's Cardinal Stone, of course, which is the asset managers now. Let's talk to a player in the sector, Funmi Babatunde-Dada. She's Executive Director at Teco Group, and you're very welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. First of all, I think you should tell us what Teco Group does.
Okay, so we've been around for 45 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes, second-generation business. We build palm oil mills. So we have built a number of palm oil mills across the country since the 80s. One of the mills we built in 1983 was actually commissioned by Buhari.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's still functioning today.
How about that? Fantastic. So, I mean, but then that would mean we want to talk about how we can scale crude palm oil output. So you're more focused on the bigger players, right? Who are your customers? Who are your clients?
So one of our biggest clients is JB Farms.
Okay, well, that's big.
Yes, well. Okay. But we also work with a number of other medium-sized players as well.
Okay, so how do you see the challenges, right, with respect to the increasing output of crude palm oil because of all the derivatives, soap, cooking oil, and all the things that we use in cosmetics and everything? The issue with not being able to meet our demand in Nigeria.
Right. So one of the biggest issues we have in Nigeria is that 80%, or more than 80% actually, of production is by small-scale processors, right? And I would say Malaysia has done something that has worked really well.
Okay.
I think it's something that could work here, but we're a very long shot from that, away from that. And what do I mean? We have a lot of these 80% of these small-scale farm holders. They own what? 2 acres, 50 acres,
right.
10 acres, maybe a few 100 acres. There's only so much you can produce if you try and go it alone, right? Why don't we do more around collaboration? Why aren't we coming together to build mills in communities, in clusters, so proper mechanized palm oil mills, instead of trying to do it small scale. And the reason why that's super important is because, first of all, the bigger mills can produce a whole lot more. That's the faster and the quickest way to increase our output.
Okay.
Secondly, you get better quality, more hygienic palm oil that can then be sold on the global stage beyond even consumption in Nigeria. The quality of the palm oil, a lot of the small-scale processors, when I mean small, I mean the really, really micro processors, like what you showed on just a few minutes ago. The quality of the palm oil they're producing can only be consumed in Nigeria effectively.
Right.
And there's a debate around how hygienic they are for human consumption, but we're not going to go into that.
Right.
What Malaysia has done over the last few years, not few years, but 60 or so years, and how they took over as the biggest player from Nigeria in the mid-90s, was to effectively allow small-scale farm holders to sell their bunches and their fruits to a processor in that community.
Gotcha.
So instead of everybody trying to process the small output that they have, how about we all come together, collaborate, sell what we, first of all, they also did a lot of training around the sort of how to farm, how to ensure you plant the right seedling, how to ensure that you are doing the right doing the right thing to ensure you get best output from what you plant, and then when you get quality fruit, selling it to like a processor in that community. That way, everybody wins, right? So you're not trying to invest in processing equipment and getting, to a large extent, a lot of those equipment are inefficient because they're small.
Right.
And then the quality of what you get is also not that great. So there's only so much you can sell it for. So the whole industry needs to be restructured.
Exactly.
That's what I would say.
How many people are required to operate these mills that you build?
So it does depend. Again, it depends on the size.
Right.
But before I even talk about the number of people that are employed, I want to also talk about the benefits to actually bringing palm oil mills to communities. From my experience, as you obviously are aware, farms and palm oil mills are built in rural areas.
Right.
What I have seen firsthand is how basic infrastructure that you take for granted in the cities actually are lacking in those areas. And when you bring mills to these areas, automatically those things come along with it. So either the investors are lobbying government or they just invest in it themselves. So you find places where there were no roads, now we have a road. You have places where there was no power, now there's power in that community because this mill investor needs the power to be in that community, access to clean water. And then the communities begin to also develop around the locals are now building houses because there are people to rent the houses. You see small hotels coming up, small food.
Well, you're urbanizing the rural area, are you not?
Pretty much. Really. And
so no more rural areas.
Well, semi-rural, semi-urban. But the point is, we're bringing basic infrastructure that everybody, whether you're rural or urban, should have access to.
Certainly.
So those are the benefits, and then there's the jobs that come into these communities as well.
So, but the thing is, there's got to be some kind of so if where you are is the urban center, you're all high tech, you got fiber internet, you got water, you got the buildings. I'm rural in my little huts and so on. There has to be an incentive for the entity that is going to build that palm oil milling plants to come there in the first place, right?
Yes,
Which is why you're saying the surrounding infrastructure has to be there.
Correct.
Well, do you see that scaling over time? How have you observed things with your time over at your company? Do you see?
I think it's possible. I think this is where also government comes in. With this government support, government giving a lot of attention to it, to give incentives to investors to come, giving incentives even to the farmers to say, instead of you doing it this way, how about we can incentivize you farming the right way and then selling to these investors. There's ways around it, and there's a lot of money to be made. I tell people all the time that the palm oil business is a fantastic business. It's very capital intensive. So the first few years, you are going to put a lot of money into it.
And you have to be patient.
And you have to be very patient. But then once you are patient, it does pay off. For the next 30 years.
Patient dog gets the fattest palm oil.
Exactly. That's completely apt.
So you're optimistic on the market, and you think there's going to be growth there going forward in Nigeria?
Without a doubt.
Great to have you on the show. We'll have to have you back and see how things develop over time.
I would love to be back.
Mrs. Funmi Babatunde-Dada, Executive Director at the Teco Group. Thank you so much for your time.